Hello, my name is Yusuf and welcome to today's business vocabulary lesson. In today's lesson, we'll be looking at vocabulary relating specifically to work and jobs. Now, as you know, one day, whether as a graduate or someone looking to, change their employment status, one day you will have to go and look for a job. So some of these terminologies you will be coming across them many times. So it will be a good opportunity for us to definitely have a look at what these terminologies are. So if you're ready, I'm ready. Let's start. Okay, fantastic. Now let's look at the first slide that we have here. Full-time job. Full-time job. What is a full-time job? A full-time job by definition is one where you work 5 days a week, usually from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. From 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Now, if we were to count from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., that would be exactly 8 hours. So think of it this way. A full-time work or a full-time employment is one where you're expected to work for 8 hours a day for 5 days, usually from Monday to Friday, sometimes depending from Sunday to Thursdays. It depends from country to country. Okay, now there are many examples of a full-time employment. For example, as a teacher, I'm expected to be in my workplace usually from 7 a.m. in the morning till about 1 p.m., sometimes pushing 2 p.m. Okay, I know it's a lot of work, a lot of hours, but hey, I gotta do it, right? Okay, fantastic. Now let's look at an example of a full-time work or a full-time employment, right? Excellent. Now we have a young lady here, as you could clearly see. She's sitting in an office environment. Looks like there are some penguin toys on the desk. Nonetheless, she seems very busy, very focused, and she looks like someone who knows her job. So someone who knows his job or her job, we call them a professional. What do we call them? A professional. Someone who can do their job very, very well. Okay, so the job title that she has is that of a software engineer. Now, maybe as you know, in IT there are two types of ways or angles to look at it. There is the hardware and then there is the software. The software deals with the programs, okay, and the hardware deals with the electronics and the gadgets and the things that go on the computer. All right, so the software deals with the inside of the computer, the programs, and the hardware deals with the outside of the computer, right? Fantastic. Now, what is a software engineer? Let's look at the definition of this full-time employment. Now, a software engineer helps to design, test, and fix software programs for companies in many industries, from computer and IT companies to manufacturing, education, and entertainment. Okay, let's repeat the definition one more time. A professional software engineer helps design, test, and fix software programs for companies in many industries, from computer and IT companies to manufacturing, education, and entertainment. Now there are probably some new words that you haven't come across. So let's look at what these terminologies actually mean. Okay, so we can understand a bit more about this software engineering job. All right, fantastic. You with me so far? Excellent. Now, vocabulary. Software engineer. Okay, so we said that software engineers, they help to design. Now, to design refers to create or make something new. Okay, to create or make something new. All right. So, for example, probably you know this company, Microsoft. Microsoft is a software company. What do they make? What do they create? Microsoft Excel, Microsoft PowerPoint, which I'm using, Microsoft Word, okay, and many more other programs across the last 30 or even 35 years, okay, and it is a global company. It's known around the world, okay, fantastic. So to create or to make means to produce something new, okay, to produce something new, to bring something new. All right, fantastic. Let's look at the next word, test. To test means to check if something is working or not. To check if something is working or not. So let me give you a simple example. I am a teacher, okay? After I have taught, let's say 3 or 4 lessons, I have to test my students to make sure that they understood what I taught them, okay? Otherwise, there's no point to continuously teach them, correct? Now, the software engineer, they check if the programs are working correctly or they're not working correctly, meaning incorrectly, okay? That's their job. They analyze, they check. All right? Fantastic. The next one is pretty clear. To fix means to solve a problem. To solve a problem. So, for example, let's say you're working for a company, and one day, as the employee, you put your ID login, and for some strange reason, the computer shuts down itself. You say, oh my God, what happened here? Something's going wrong. So you pick up the call. You say, hello, could I speak to the software engineer, please? Yes, what's the problem? Well, my computer is not logging in. I need you to come here. Okay, I'll be there within 5 minutes. They come, they log in, they check and say, oh, you've got this issue, you've got that virus running around, and they delete it. So what do? They fix the problem, okay? They bring a solution, all right? And in life, there's no point complaining, right? There's a problem, and there's got to be what? A solution. Where there's a problem, there's a solution, all right? Cool. The next one. Industries. Industries. You must have come across this word many times. We've got IT industries, we've got manufacturing industries, we've got shoe industries. What is industries? In simple term, industries refers to a collective group of businesses. A collective group of businesses. So for example, the shoe industry, okay? So when we think about the shoe industry, what comes to our mind? Okay, Adidas, Reebok, Puma, Nike, correct? Under Armour. So these are many companies that are producing or making almost similar products, but they are what? They're competing with each other. They're trying to be the number one, all right? Sometimes Nike wins, sometimes Adidas wins, sometimes Reebok wins. So an industry is a group of companies that are competing. They're trying to compete for the customers. Okay, fantastic. The next word, manufacturing. All right. So manufacturing relates to producing of something you can touch and feel. Touch and feel. So for example, let's think of the car industry. All right, what comes to your mind? Toyota, Lexus. If you want to be a bit more rich, brands. You've got BMW, more expensive brands. You've got Lamborghini, really expensive brands. You've got Bentley and Bugatti. All right. So manufacturing deals with making of something. Okay, making of something. All right. So we have good examples of car industries. We've got examples of steel industries, and as you know, we need the steel to make a building, such as a school, such as a hospital. All right. So process takes place. All right. And also plastic companies. So if you drink, for example, Coca-Cola or Mirinda in the old days, if you remember the plastic, the thing that the liquid is in, okay, there are companies that produce this. There are companies that make this. Yeah. So they take something and then they take it to the factory. They change it and then they produce it, right, into plastic. All right. Okay. So that is manufacturing. And manufacturing is an important part of a country's economy. All right. Without manufacturing, at times it's difficult for that country to improve its living standards for its citizens. All right. That's another lesson to itself. Now, interesting. Education. I'm involved in education. I'm a teacher, right? So software engineers, they help people like myself. Sometimes I get IT login issues. All right. So I have to call them. It's a bit annoying because the students are all looking at you like that. Sir, are you going to teach us today or what? I say, yeah, I have to teach you, but we got to wait. We've got an IT issue, which is why it's always good to depend on your books first. So they help schools, right? They help colleges, all right? And as you know, colleges, it depends. I mean, from where I come from, the United Kingdom, a college for us is the 2 years before university. But in America, college is university. If that makes sense. Or universities, which deals with higher education. So, when you're doing your bachelor's and your postgraduate or your doctoral. All right. So there's a software engineer that helps with those IT related issues as well. Fantastic. Entertainment. So they help companies that maybe produce movies, okay, or maybe social media companies. All right. If there is an issue with, say, possibly a show that's going to happen. Let's say there is a show on The Lion King, right, in a theater, but there's a problem with the lighting, or there's something wrong with the staging. People cannot see the characters pretty well. So, the software engineer has to get involved and find out what on earth is going on. Yeah. And of course, sports. So, God forbid if there is a football game and suddenly the lights disappear, right, because of a virus. So, software engineers have to get involved in that as well. Okay. Fantastic. So far we've looked at what a full-time employment is, which is working 5 days a week for 8 hours a day. And we've looked at the example of a software engineer's importance, and also that a software engineer usually works full-time. Now, a question that I have for you is, what's the opposite of a full-time employment? What do you think? Okay, I think you guessed it right. It is part-time employment or a part-time job. Okay, so remember what we said about a full-time job, which was working how many hours a day? 8 hours a day. Now, with the part-time job, it's not the same. It's slightly different. Okay, let's read the definition together, shall we? A part-time job is where you work less than 30 hours in a week. Okay, 30 hours in a week. Now, let's do the maths here. Say you are a full-time employee. Okay, you're working 8 hours a day. So 8 multiplied by 5 days a week, that is 45 hours a week. And that's the minimum. Some people, they work 50, 60, 70, depending on their job. Okay, let's say the minimum required for a full-time job throughout the week is 45 hours. Now look at here. What did they say about a part-time job? You're only required to work 30 hours in a week. 30 hours or less. Okay. Now some people, okay, they prefer this style of working. Maybe they are full-time moms, right? They just gave birth to a child. They don't have the time to work full-time, obviously, right? Maybe they're, school students. Maybe they are college students. They're studying full-time, but they only want to earn a bit of money just to pay off their, their rent or their mobile bills and things of that nature, maybe just to travel here and there. Yeah. So a part-time job sometimes is pretty handy, pretty useful, don't you think? Now, just like we did with the full-time employment example, let's look at a part-time employment example, okay? And one that is very familiar to all of us. You ready for this? Okay, let's look into it. Fantastic. All right, cashiers. You've seen them. They're always smiling, well, most of them anyways. And where do we find cashiers usually? All right, you guessed it right. We usually find them at the supermarkets. Yeah, at the supermarkets. Okay, what is a cashier? But before we look at the definition, let's quickly analyze this picture, right? So there is a customer, all right? She's dressed in a pink jacket. She's got a big bag. And if you could see from the picture, the cashier lady, she looks young, and she has this beautiful smile on her face. She's about to grab the pineapple and tell the customer how much she has to pay for that juicy pineapple, right? And we could see bread, we could see vegetables. I think that's pepperoni if I'm not mistaken, maybe milk as well. All right, so that's what a cashier is, okay? They make your day. They welcome you with that beautiful smile. Sometimes we see the cashiers at cafes, such as, for example, Dunkin' Donuts, Costa, Cafe Nero if you're from the UK. If you're from America, Starbucks. You guys love your Starbucks, but anyways, I prefer Costa. Sorry, gotta be a bit biased. So let's look at the definition of a cashier, right? Cashiers are responsible for receiving payments, issuing receipts to the customers, and keeping track of all cash or credit transactions, and they work in shifts. Let's repeat that again. Cashiers are responsible for receiving payments, issuing receipts to the customers, and keeping track of all cash or credit transactions, and they work in shifts. Okay, let's look at the vocabulary behind a cashier. Okay, so we have a deeper understanding of what exactly they do, because you never know, one day you could be a cashier. All right, okay, so let's quickly look at the vocabulary that we've just heard relating to the responsibilities of a cashier. All right, okay, the first one, receiving payments. This is pretty clear. Okay, as a cashier, the responsibility is collecting money from customers by cash or a credit card. So once the customers are at the till, right, and you have told them how much they have to pay, they're ready to take out their credit card, or they're willing to take out their wallet and to give their cash, right? Your job is to collect that cash, count it correctly, and to put it back in the till. Okay, fantastic. As a cashier. The second terminology is issuing of receipts, giving customers receipts showing how much they have paid. Okay, this is very important. So as a customer, once I have bought what I wanted to buy from the supermarket, it's important to keep track of a receipt, because that tells you what things you bought and how much you've paid for each thing. Okay, because sometimes what as a customer you could do is you could make a mistake. You could say, wait a second, why am I being overcharged here? All right, and the cashier explains, you know, sorry sir, we had a deal 3 days ago, but now the price has gone up, so we're charging you £2 instead of 75p, for example. Okay, so it's good to keep the receipt and to issue the receipt correctly. The next terminology, keeping track. Cashiers making sure they have the correct information on how much the customers are paying. Okay, so as a cashier, it's important to keep an eye on how much money you're receiving from the customer and how much money is going into the till. Okay, because you know, if something does go wrong later, the cashier could be blamed for it, and it does happen sometimes, especially if there's a huge queue. A lot of people are coming in the supermarket or a clothing shop and they're buying quickly, for example in the times of, you know, Christmas or New Year, right? So it's important for the cashier to keep track, regardless of the pressure, to keep track on that till, how much money is coming in, how much money they're giving out. Otherwise, if the business has a problem, then later it could go into loss. Okay, because the whole point of a business is to make profit. Okay, clear. Transactions. Okay, transactions. How much the customers are paying and how much the change that the cashiers are giving their customers. Okay, so a transaction, I'll explain to you in a very simple way. Say I'm buying a watch, okay, and it's going to cost me £40 or $40, let's say. So I give out the $50. So how much am I owed? Okay, $10. Okay, so this is a transaction. So how much the customer has paid and what change the customer has collected. So it's also the responsibility of the cashier to keep an eye on how much they're giving their customer, okay, as we discussed before. And finally, shifts. Now this is working either in the morning or working in the evening or sometimes at night. So some people, they prefer to work in the morning. Maybe as a student, they're looking to go and study in the evening, say from 4 p.m. till 10 p.m. So they don't have the time, in the evening. So they say, you know what, why don't they just work from, say, 11 a.m. till 2 p.m. Okay? And some people, they prefer the evening, all right? And some people, they prefer working at night, okay? Because sometimes when you work at night, it's a difficult job. For example, if you're working as a security guard, for example, you're making sure that the building is being secured and no thieves are coming in or things of that nature. It's a dangerous job. It's a dangerous job, and sometimes you get bonuses for that. Okay. Sometimes you work in Amazon warehouses, all right, and you're working at odd times when most people are asleep. Here you are, picking up packages and putting it on the shelves, and so companies they at times they respect that, and what they do is they issue out some extra bonuses to their employees. But that's not the norm most of the time, but sometimes. So some people, they prefer working at night, even though that is not my preference. I'd rather work in the morning and spend my time with myself, all right, or my friends in the evening. Okay, fantastic. Now, how do we get to work? How do we get to work? Let's look at how we get to work. So let's look at this picture here. There is a young man, he's carrying a bag, okay, and he's standing at the train platform. So probably he's going to work. Yeah. So getting to work. He says here, I get to work by train. Now this is one of the ways to get to work. Me personally, I get to work by car. Sometimes I get to work by bus. Okay. So the mode of transportation is important, because ultimately you have to get to work, right? Okay, so let's look at the terminology once again. Okay, we're going to practice saying I get to work, I get to work, I get to work. So in my case, I get to work by car. Maybe in your case, I get to work by walking. Some people, I get to work by cycling. I get to work by taking a lift with my friend. So your friend is driving and says, hey John or Muhammad, come in, I'm going to give you a lift to our workplace. So sometimes you get to work by by a scooter in some of these far eastern countries, okay, like Thailand or Philippines. Okay, they prefer a scooter. It's a culture. All right, fantastic. Okay, now we're going to practice saying leaving for work. Okay, leaving for work. Let's look at this picture. Now we have a sort of like a 40-plus-year-old man. He's got his coffee with him. He's got his laptop bag with him, suited, booted, nice house at the back. Okay, and what is he saying? I leave for work at 6:30 a.m. every morning. Now that's very early. Okay, I leave, okay, for work at 6:30 a.m. as well. Okay, so every morning. So Let's practice together. So you could say I leave for work at 8 a.m. I leave for work at 11 a.m. Or if you're working at night, you say I leave for work at 9 p.m. depending on your shift or the time that you are working in. Okay, so once again, I leave for work at a specific time that is appropriate to you. Okay, fantastic, excellent. So far we've looked at leaving for work. Okay, now we're going to look at arriving at work. Arriving at work. Okay, meaning what time do you reach work? Okay, fantastic. Let's practice with that now. Okay, so we've got a young man. Okay, he's standing next to a pretty nice window. Okay, he's got his a cup of or mug of coffee, and he's in some deep thought. He's thinking. Yeah. All right. Maybe this is his break time. You never know. Okay. Excellent. So arriving at work. He says here, I arrive at work. I arrive at work at about 10. At about 10. Okay. So he's starting pretty late in the day. All right. Pretty late in the day. So in my case, I leave for work at 6:30 a.m. and I arrive at work at 7 a.m. So it takes me about half an hour to get there. Okay. What about you? What time do you leave for work? Okay, so you could say as a student, I leave for school at say 7 a.m. Okay, and I arrive at school say at 8 a.m. Okay, clear? So I leave and I arrive. Clear so far? Excellent. Now we would be looking at the different places or locations that people could actually work in. So again, as an example, as a teacher, where do teachers work? Teachers usually work in a school. Some teachers, they work in universities, okay, and we call them professors, all right? Some teachers, they work in what we call a training school, where they're training a group of selected special employees, okay, maybe working for a company, so electrical engineers or software engineers, and they're teaching them specific type of English, maybe business English, like I'm trying to teach you today. Okay, so let's look at where people usually work. Okay, and it depends from person to person, okay, very good, excellent. So this is the usual most common form of work. Okay, office work. Let's look at this example. This gentleman says, by the way, he's got a nice, I think it's Apple Mac, yeah, computer. Okay, very expensive though. He says, I am a manager, so he can afford it. I am a manager. I work for a large bank in London. I am an office worker. Look at the word here. I am an office worker. Okay, so usually people who work as managers, as accountants, as engineers, okay, as people who do advertisements or marketing or social media, they work in an office environment, okay, in an office environment. So there is a desk, there is a big computer, there are people that are sitting next to them. Sometimes they work in teams, so they collaborate together, okay. So they call themselves office workers, okay? And as a manager, it's very important to keep an eye, or once again, we're going to use the terminology, to keep track of those people who work under you, okay? So your staff members. And the responsibilities rise as your position rises, okay? But hey, not everybody works in an office. Since, if you remember, COVID kicked in, the world has changed a bit. So people that used to work in the office, suddenly they've decided, you know what, I've been spending so much time away from my family, I'm going to start spending just a bit more time with my son or with my daughter or with my lovely wife, or in the case of a woman, with my gracious husband, okay, depending. So there are those people who prefer now to just, not to work from the office. Okay. So there is another terminology for it. It's not office work. We call it, friends, remote work. Remote work. Okay. Remote work. Okay. Let's look at this example here. It says, I am a businesswoman. Okay. She looks like a professional, someone who knows what she's doing. All right. She's sitting on the floor, looking at a laptop. Okay. Cross-legged. And there are some books and papers on the floor. So clearly she's very engaged in what she's doing. Let's continue the story. Sounds interesting. I'm a businesswoman. I sell clothes on my website. Okay. So some people, all right, they are in the industry of e-commerce. E-commerce. So they like to sell on their own website. And sometimes they like to sell on other companies' websites. So for example, they sell on eBay, they sell on Amazon. Nowadays there's a talk of a company called Shopify. Some people like to open up their own Shopify store. Basically, it's a company that helps you to set up your own online company. And she says here, I work from home. Okay, I work, okay, from home. So probably she's a stay-home mom. Okay, maybe she's tired of working in an office environment. Sometimes it's pretty stressful. There are deadlines or targets to meet. There is a lot of office politics, people chatting behind people's backs, right? Trust me, been there. It's not a good place. So some people, once they have, made some savings, they prefer to de-stress and to say, you know what, I'm just going to take a step back. I'm just going to relax and I'm going to work from my home. And you know what? It's going to be far better than working for someone or in an office. So they work remotely. What do? They work remotely. Okay. An example of these people are business people. Okay. And what we call freelancers. So some people who, for example, will work for you for limited time, maybe say 2 hours or 3 hours in the week. You give them a project and they get it done. An example that I can think of is a t-shirt designer. Okay, so let's say you have your own t-shirt company, right? You're selling to people who are into, let's say, running. You've got this nice picture that you've come up with, and you tell the designer, you know what, Mr. Freelancer, I'm going to give you 3 days to come up with the best recommendations for this picture, if you can improve it, and they get on to work, and before you know it, lo and behold, as they say, it's done. Okay, so a freelancer works remotely. Okay, some of the co-authors, or what we call people who work for others, ghostwriters, right? They also work remotely. They work from their home with their laptop. All right, fantastic, excellent. So we have covered so far what a full-time job is, what a part-time job is, where people usually work. Do they work in an office? Okay, do they work remotely? Okay, we looked at a few terminologies such as leaving for work, arriving at work, okay, or getting to work. Fantastic. Now we will look at how people feel about their job. Now remember, not everybody is exuberant or happy about their job. Some people are and some people aren't. Okay, let's look at how people perceive their job, how people look at their job. Okay, because every job is different. Okay, fantastic. Now we are going to look at this doctor. Okay, it says here at the top, positive, okay, positive feelings. All right, positive feelings. Okay, why is he positive? Let's find out. I am a doctor. I help a lot of patients. Now, patients are people who are sick. Okay, people who are sick. My job is very satisfying. My job is very satisfying. Okay, my job is satisfying. Now, if you look at the picture, is he sad? No. In fact, he's very happy. Very, very happy. Right? He's got this big grin on his face, and he is the doctor of the town, as we like to call it, right? You could tell he's a very experienced doctor, right? But what is satisfying? What is satisfying? What's another way of saying satisfying? When he says, I'm very satisfied with my job. Okay, satisfying has many meanings, but we will take a couple. All right. The first one is interesting. Okay, so he likes his job. He has desire for it. He finds it different every day. Okay, because some jobs are pretty stagnant. They're the same. Nothing changes. But here, satisfying. It's interesting. He's very curious. So one patient today has a problem with his neck. Another patient, she has a problem with her leg. Okay, another person has got a problem with their head. That there's a migraine. Okay, so every patient is different. So he finds this interesting. Another way of saying satisfying is fascinating. It's like when you're really, really engrossed. You really are into something. Okay, you're fascinated by it. You really want to find out everything about it. So a patient comes to you and he says, "Doctor, I've got this flu." Really? Okay, what happened? Well, I was out yesterday. I was at a cafe. I had too much chocolate. So your sugar levels are high. Okay, and he checks his sugar level. Okay, and he finds it. Okay, he says, okay, that's interesting. Okay, sure. Okay, what happened at the cafe? Okay, well, I was talking with my friend, and he mentioned that next week we are going to have a meeting with my boss, and so stress level. Yeah, I've been thinking about that, and okay, so he finds it very fascinating. He's very engrossed. He wants to find out more. And of course, this leads to the next word, which is exciting. He never gets bored. There is no moment of boredom. Every day there's just momentum. There's this excitement. There's this passion, He just wants to keep moving on. Yeah, exciting. Okay. So someone who's satisfied in their job is a lucky, very lucky creature. All right, very lucky person. And I think this doctor is definitely one of them. But are all people like that? I doubt it. Not everyone is like that. Okay, let's look at the next example. My God. Now, if you look at her, she's sitting in front of the laptop. Clearly, she is like that. She is not really excited. She doesn't look fascinated, and she's definitely is not satisfied. Negative, negative. Opposite of positive is negative. Yeah, the doctor was positive. She is very negative. Okay, why? Let's find out. I am a receptionist. Okay, receptionist is someone who's responsible for picking up the call of the companies. In other words, if you're a receptionist for a hotel, okay, customers are calling in. Hello, I would like to book a 2-bedroom room, please, for Sunday for myself and for my son or husband in that case, right? So a receptionist just picks up the call. Okay, we've got this and we've got that. We don't have this. They put the phone down. Okay, I don't like my job. I find it very dull. Very dull. Okay, what is dull? It doesn't sound positive to me. Okay, dull is boring. When some job, when some tasks in the job are just the same every single day, you're good at it. Don't get me wrong, you're very good at it. You're very good at speaking on the phone and answering the questions of the customers and as a receptionist. But there comes a point when you say, you know what, I need to change. I need to change. Enough is enough. I need to find a way out. The money is the same. The challenges are the same. The opportunities barely exist for growth. You can't become a manager. You're looking for a way out. Okay? Okay? So one of the meanings of dull is boring. Okay? That there's no change. Another way of saying dull is uninteresting. Okay? The opposite of interesting. Interesting, you want to find out more, like the doctor. Uninteresting, you could care less. Okay, thanks for calling. Bye. Uninteresting. Okay? Yeah, and you find it tiring. You find it very, very tiring. Okay? You're working a lot of hours and you're getting this much pay, right? And the stress is that much, and it's just like driving in the middle of a dark forest and you don't know where on earth you are. Okay? And my suggestion, if you're in such a job, it is time for a change. It's time for a big time change, yeah? All right, fantastic. So I feel sorry for her, but you know, not every job is exciting, don't you think? Yeah, but change is possible if you choose to believe, that is. All right, the next job. All right, so we've got a we've got a gentleman here, big bulky guy, right? Big beard, all right, like a bit like mine, but bit more. He's wearing a nice cap, right? Yeah, he looks like a bit of a rock star, don't you think? Yeah. He's clearly got a big truck behind him. Okay, so he looks happy. He looks happy in his job, but he is working long hours. Okay, long hours. He says here, I'm a truck driver. Okay, and I have all respect for truck drivers. Okay, without them, we would never get the petrol in the country. We will never get the gas in the country. We will never get the food, the clothing. I have all respect for truck drivers. Yeah. Okay, I'm a truck driver. I work 70 hours in a week. Do you remember what we said about a full-time job? How many hours was that? 45 hours? This guy is working almost double. That is 70 hours. Imagine the amount of time he's spending on inside the driving, right? Inside the truck, away from his family, away from his, friends, away from his community, away from himself, all right? Not even the chance to rest or to read a book or to spend time on a beach. So he says here, I work very long hours. Don't get me wrong, some people, they love to work 20 hours a day, right? I know some people who work in what we call investment banking, where they're buying and selling in the stock market, and sometimes they work 18 hours in a day, and they're required to work those many hours if they want to get their bonuses, right? That's not a way I want to live. Long hours, life is too short. You don't want to work long hours, yeah? Some people, they like that, okay? I think in his case, he's happy with that. But, maybe the pay is good. Maybe the pay is good. I've heard that truck drivers get paid very well. I'm not going to say how much, but the pay is good, but the hours are pretty long, all right? Excellent. Now, some jobs are a bit tough to satisfy. Let's look at here. A demanding job, okay? Of course, we can see a pilot. He has a wonderful smile on his face. He's a young guy, okay? And he looks content, he looks happy in his job. He says, I'm an airline pilot. My job is demanding, all right? My job is demanding, okay? But I enjoy it, meaning I love it. Interesting, okay? So, some jobs are demanding, okay? They're difficult, okay? They're difficult. So, if you're a pilot, you have 101 things to think about. You need to think about where the wind is coming from. You need to think about if there's enough fuel in the engine, right? In the plane. You need to think about how many customers are on the plane. You need to think about if the destination, right? The destination that you're going to, the airport, is not going to be full of traffic, because some planes, they have to be in the air, they have to rotate in there before they land, okay? So there's a lot of pressure on a pilot, a lot of pressure. And they too work long hours at times, yeah, okay? And their job is demanding, it's tough. You've got to stay focused 100%. 1 inch of a mistake, the plane could just, God forbid, just crash. And we've seen this, in the news. We don't want none of that for anybody, okay? So another way of saying that the job is demanding, it's a tough job. It's a tough job. It's tough. You have to be physically strong. You've got to be mentally strong. You've got to be prepared most of the time. You've got to remember that you're going to be away from your house, away from your family for many days, because, as a pilot, say you fly from London, you land in Australia, well, you have to rest for 2 days, and then you have to travel from Australia, let's say, to another country, somewhere in the world, and, you're going to be away from your family at least 60 to 70% of the time, for 10, 15, maybe sometimes 20 years, and it's a big sacrifice. It's a big sacrifice. It's a demanding job. It's a demanding job. But some people, they are willing to pay the price, okay? They're willing to pay the price, and they say, you know what, my family comes first. I got to do this, yeah? All right, okay, so that's a demanding job. Fantastic. Excellent. Hope you're enjoying it so far. I am. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it looks like we've reached the end. Yeah, today's lesson was very interesting, wasn't it? Yeah, we've looked at a lot of things. We've looked at vocabulary, we've looked at the different ways that people work, we've looked at the emotions that people attach to their job, how some jobs are exciting, how some jobs are a bit negative and they pull you down, and you have those negative emotions. How some people, they work long hours, but hey, they don't care, and some people, they love these demanding jobs. Okay, so another demanding job that we can think about is a surgeon. A heart surgeon. That's a tough job. One little mistake and the person could be gone. Right? That's a demanding job itself. But hey, thanks for watching. If you liked the video, make sure to press the like button, to subscribe. Uh, let us know what you thought of the lesson. I look forward to hearing your comments. Okay, and I'll be posting more business vocabulary lessons as we go on. And this is an opportunity for you, not only as a student of business, to expand your vocabulary, but also to improve your English as well. Okay, to improve your English as well. Keep up the good hard work. Okay, and I look forward to seeing you soon in the next lesson. All right, if you have any questions, make sure to ask. If not, then have a wonderful day, and I look forward to seeing you, and see you soon. Take care, goodbye, and yeah, have a nice one. Bye for now.